Welcome everyone to the Home Service Summit webinar series. I think this is show number 38. So I've been doing this for a while, and all the content, everything you talk about is all about home services. The idea is how can we provide things that can help you as a franchisor or as a franchisee to run your business more effectively. And I'm really excited about this interview, and I'm really thankful that both Larry and Svet have agreed to come on the show. They're among our top franchisees amongst all the brands. We've got about 1,000 franchisees now at 5-star with about 1,500 locations. Larry and Svet operate their business out of just outside of Orlando. A place called Winter Garden is where the franchise is located, and they've done a fantastic job growing their business, which we're going to get into detail about how they've done that. The last 3 years, they've been at about 1.5 million in revenue. And we were just talking backstage about how, they started their business getting going and hustling, and in their first year got about $600,000 and then broke $1 million in their second year, which is phenomenal, and have grown since then. So definitely want to unpack what they've done to be able to achieve that. I know it's the dream of every franchisee in home services to break that $1 million mark. It's a momentous occasion. And so I want to make sure that we dive into that and get to those details. Before we do, just some context on how this whole show works. If you haven't been here this is your first time, I'll do a live. This is all live, and I'll be asking a bunch of questions throughout the show. And then there's a chat area you can jump into at any given time. If you got questions for either me or Larry or Svet, feel free to load those questions in. I'll make sure we get to those either during this interview or in the last 15 minutes. I want to make sure I also just remind everyone that the Home Service Summit annual event is coming up. It's on November 6th through 10th this year. We extended the early bird special, and that goes through the end of June. So if you register before June 30th, you get to save, I think, $100 on your registration. And so far, we have about 319 attendees registered. So we want to welcome you all and see you all in person. I know we're going to talk a little bit about what Larry and Svet's experience was. And I think this is valuable because for Larry and Svet, this is the first time that they attended the event where it wasn't all about Gotcha Covered. We talked about that backstage, the transition from, being in a brand where you're with a management team like Paul and these great people that are amazing at running the business. And now all of a sudden you're in a bigger swimming pool with a lot more people and you don't know everybody. And how do you take advantage of that event to make sure that it adds value to you and your business? We got some good ideas backstage that we're going to be implementing for this annual convention. I look forward to doing. So, register, attend. I can't wait to see you in person. And let's jump right into questions. Okay, so first, how did you decide to get into window treatment business? How did you find Gotcha Covered? Give us your story.
We went through a broker, and we interviewed a lot of different franchisors, and they do it in rounds. So we had a round of 3 different franchises that we were looking into, and actually almost settled on a different one. But as we were talking to the franchisees, we realized no one was really happy. Everybody just seemed really stressed, and maybe they were making a good living, maybe they weren't, but they just weren't happy. So we asked our broker for another slew of franchises to look at, and Gotcha Covered was one of them. And the income potential, and when we spoke with the franchisees, everyone seemed happy. They seemed happy. They seemed excited about their jobs. It seemed like the income potential was where we needed it to be. And so that's what made us make that decision. Neither one of us had done anything in the home, anything industry ever.
Really? So what was your career path before Gotcha Covered? What were you guys doing before then?
I actually owned a tutoring company, a little. So I sent tutors out to different areas, and I've been in educational sales for a long time, management and sales. And Larry?
Yeah, I came from the corporate world. Where this started was Svet had left her corporate position, and she had a friend that had got into franchise broker, and my VP of sales got let go, and he was performing at a high level, but it was more of a corporate political restructuring, and it made me realize as I was getting toward the end of my career, I didn't want to be so vulnerable to that.
Yeah.
So I came to Svet and said, "Hey, I'd like to start a business myself." Her business was profitable, making money, and so she said, "Sure, let's call Heidi and let's see what we can find for you." So we
Okay.
started. So this was actually going to be just my franchise, and she was going to keep hers. But it didn't take us very long at all to see the potential. Not to mention that I had the tiger by the tail, and I was alone on it. So and I needed the slugger to come in and help.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it really elevated us. We wouldn't be at the level we would be if we weren't doing this as a team. But so we picked this. What I was looking for in a franchise was something that we could afford. Number one, something that was scalable, that we could start small, and because we didn't have, $500,000, $600,000 to put a business in, put employees in place, and wait for the residual revenue. All of us will love that residual income. So I just figured, you know what, we'll turn this into a business and build the residual by building the brand. And, it's taken us about 7 years, but we're starting to get to the point to where that business is starting to kind of flow every month without us having to do a lot of work to get it from all the business we've done in the past. That, the successful business, the repeat and referral customers.
Yeah, I think Larry, you said a few things that are really worth noting. One is, first of all, when you entered the process, you hadn't decided you wanted to be in window treatment. You were just simply looking for a vehicle to achieve some financial independence.
Correct.
Right. And you used a broker to help guide you through that process to find one of those concepts. And so I think it's important for us all to remember that we need to build businesses that help people achieve the results they want, which is just financial independence, have a business to give them flexibility and make a living. So that's a reminder for me. Second is that what made your decision, it sounds like, was validation. You called franchisees and you just asked them, are you happy? And you called a bunch of franchisees you first saw and you're like, no one's happy here. They may make money, but no one's happy here. And you just kept moving until finally you found a place where the franchisees are validating that they enjoy being part of the brand, right?
Yes.
And I don't, you guys know Paul, who's our brand president. I got you covered. And his team are some of the best. They are so good at creating a culture of supporting each other and a great community. I'm very proud of that. In fact, that's one of the reasons why Five Star wanted to buy Got You Covered. I'd been going to your annual conventions for so many years through our ProNexis, our call center solution, that I said right away, if there's one brand out there that I would want to buy and be part of Five Star, it's Got You Covered. It's the first deal I wanted to make, and Paul and his team were fantastic. So it's funny, we both did the same thing. We both decided on the same reason we wanted to buy into the business was because the franchisees validated. You get into window treatments. You've never been in it before. You've never been in home services. You're in education. Larry's in sales. Now you're in selling, blinds. What do you love about your business?
So we love the successes we have. We love when we hear from our customers that they love what we do. We love the flexibility of scheduling. So if I want to take the rest of the day off, I'll just make myself unavailable. We love getting out into the community and working with the community in this way.
When we were looking at a franchise, I was wanting one that I didn't have a very limited scope of market. And we had went through probably 15, 20 different franchises with Heidi through the process. And, I looked around in our market and that kind of checked one of the boxes to where I could get out and do what I do best is, to generate some community awareness. But mostly what I love about it is the fact that it lets us dictate our own course. Our own future. Our success is 100% is dictated by how hard we work. And believe me, that we are working as hard now as we did, starting it up, just in a different manner, with all the stresses, just more employees, more overhead, and bigger dreams. Our dreams have grown to be larger than what they were when we bought this franchise, so it really does. It really has. I love the fact that we're now talking about the future, what we want to do.
Yeah.
3 years from now, 5 years from now, which way we want to go out of the business, in the business, managing it, so on and so forth, as opposed to just being a wheel in the cog, so to speak.
I want to repeat back to what you just said because I think it's super interesting. You said you love seeing customers happy. You love the flexibility of ownership, business ownership. You can take a day off if you want, take a couple of days off. You have that flexibility. You love being part of a community. So you like people. You like being around people. You like networking. That's like, well, I mean,
sometimes we like people.
Those wires start to get frayed after a while. So
you love the fact you've got unlimited potential. You can build your business to become something much larger than it is today, right? And you will notice neither of you said you love window treatments.
No, it's true. They're just a necessary evil, I think.
It's a vehicle for us, 100%. It's a vehicle for us.
I just think that is so interesting because, there's so many franchise concepts out there, right? And Gotcha Covered scratched an itch for you that you had, but it was the vehicle. I want to just, if you don't mind, because one of the things I love about Gotcha Covered, which you didn't say, but I want to just bring it up. I'm wondering if you see this as well. Gotcha Covered is one of the few brands that has a fixed royalty system, right? So you pay the same amount of money a month, regardless if you sell 100,000 that month or 20,000 that month. And so for someone who's got vision and big dreams, that sounds like the perfect fit. Like, it's like, my income potential keeps going and I'm capped at what I spend on royalties.
That was my number one. The franchise she had prior was a percentage to sell, and I didn't want to just bring that up, but thank you for bringing it up, Scott. Because we don't want anything to change on that end. By no means, but
it's not changing, Larry. It's not changing.
Our goal has always been to get our cost of doing business and being able to carry the brand keep it at about 1%. We're not quite there on every month. We were there for a while, but that's huge to be able to unpack such a great brand and have our franchise owners. I cannot stress enough how much, and corporate has been wonderful, but the more we're in the business, the longer we're in the business, the better, the less we need from them, unless it's something really big. Our learning curve is starting to flatten out, but the franchise owners have been monumental in our success.
Oh, I love it when you give credit to other people, because it does. I keep saying this, one of the most important parts of being a franchisor, in my view, is the community aspect, bringing together like-minded peers that you can work with and learn from. And when you have that kind of a community that supports each other, it can create something special where you really enjoy the business, you enjoy the people, you're learning, you're growing. And I know you mentioned backstage that you were kind enough to step up and help Paul with doing some coaching with franchisees who are struggling a little bit right now, who bought the business recently. They're trying to figure out a way to how do they replicate what you guys have done in your business? What's that path? And you were kind enough to take time to go through and coach them on the things you've done that have been successful. Do you want to just talk about that a little bit? Like what are you doing? How did that happen? Do you enjoy that?
Well, yeah, it's, I came from a sales management role past 10, 12 years where I had to hire, train, and unfortunately I was responsible for letting them go, the ones that didn't fail. But and as a sales manager, you typically, a good sales manager always has salespeople making more money than they do. It's just the name of the game. But there's nothing more rewarding for somebody that's tired of I don't want to say tired of the game, but that's worn down a little bit, that gets to make a difference in somebody else's life. And these people are very, very smart business people. They just haven't had the exposure that I've had in my life with it's been called guerrilla marketing, ground marketing, getting out to the community. Because most of us don't come into the franchise with hundreds of thousands of dollars to throw at it to market and build your brand. You got to go out and, I like to say, shake babies and kiss hands, but it's supposed to be reversed with there. So,
there you go.
It's just giving the people the confidence and some word tracks to go be successful and build some relationships, because the home service business is without a doubt. It took me a few years to really understand it is a referral business. You have to build trust within the community to get the success, and it's a six-sided wheel. You have to do everything right, even get the Google reviews right, get the community right, the installation, the sales process, the follow-up. Everything has to hit. And we're in a business of a segment of business that most people don't do that with their business in the home service side of it. They don't show up. When they go on vacation, they close for 10 days, 2 weeks. We finally got our business to where we keep it running when we take a vacation. Nothing we don't miss a beat. So that's what I'm doing is with the group of franchise owners that's willing to raise their hand and say, hey, I do want to be successful, but I would like a little help, and it takes some courage there too.
Yeah, it does, right? It can be very hard to ask for help because it's admitting that maybe where you are presently you can't manage the situation and you need help, and so that you are right. It takes courage to step up and ask for help. Something I want to encourage anyone listeners who are on this show, that is a really important thing. Be willing to ask for help. And I think, Larry, it's what we try to do at Five Star. We really stress on this is when we bring in franchisees into the brands we've got, to attract the kind of people that are like you, that are willing to help others, that can take joy and satisfaction in helping other people come to where you've arrived, right? And so thank you for doing that. I want to say that again. And it's a reminder to all of us, like we want to attract the kinds of people to help create the community that people want to be part of. Because coming back to what Svet said earlier, you got you covered because of the community. The franchisees validated. So it's so important for us to build that in our brands. So it's not all good. We're going to get into the guerrilla marketing in a minute. So we're going to get into marketing and how you build your business, because you guys talked about in backstage how you've done that. Let's talk about the things that are not so fun, that you're less enjoyable, the things that drive you crazy being in home services. What is it that's hard? What don't you enjoy about being a Got You Covered franchisee? What's hard?
So when you're in the custom anything business, you have some really particular customers.
Yeah.
Customers that spend a lot of money on whatever it is they're doing, and they want a certain outcome. Sometimes that outcome isn't possible because of whatever their particular situation is, the configuration of their windows, the configuration of their home. And we've had customers actually, make it our problem if their floor isn't level, or so some things that are unreasonable that we can't help, and have those demands from customers become really challenging. I think especially in this climate, for some reason right now, people are just a little bit more angry. And so little things set them off, that, and the vendors right now making so many mistakes that it makes it almost impossible for us to complete an installation and get paid for it with that.
In one stop.
Yeah, so those things are frustrating points for them.
Yep. That's Larry, you said something that was important. It's what made me in 2003 decide I wanted to be in home services. And that is, your competitors, many of them, don't care about doing a good job as much as you do. They're not very intentional about the customer experience and making sure that the phone's always answered and you're always available and things are always taken care of. Even though if you do those things, as crazy as it sounds, it's a differentiator. Like you're different if you just do a good job, which I can tell you guys take great pride in that. You mentioned it. Svet mentioned about, you said how seeing a customer satisfied was one of the things that brings you satisfaction in your own business, right? So, but I think this is worth noting, and I do think this is going to continue. Inflation and increases in prices at the grocery store, everywhere you go, everything's costing more money than it used to. It can put some stress on relationships in a family. And so people are a little more nitpicky than maybe they used to be, right? Like want everything perfect because I'm spending so much money on blinds. By the way, maybe just for everyone and for myself, what is the average installation? What do you charge on average in your business?
Are you talking, what is our average sale?
Our
Yeah,
installation.
your average sale. What is it roughly?
It's anywhere between $4,000 and $5,000 our
Yeah, we're
average
about
sale.
4,500 right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
We
if
work
someone's
very hard on trying to keep that up because
yeah,
the more stops, because with our vendors as tough as they are, and frankly, some our mistakes, our own in-house mistakes, because we just
mhm,
we do make mistakes. Um, there's just as many mistakes on a $3,000 install as there is a $15,000 or $20,000 install.
yeah,
And that drive time, we have two in-house installers that are W-2 employees that work for us, drive a company van. So every time, and we always send two guys out on jobs if there's anything high, just safety reasons. So so on
yeah,
and so forth. So it costs us money every time we make a mistake or a vendor makes a mistake.
yeah,
It's on us. The vendors don't cover that. So.
One
yeah.
thing I want to mention, Scott, that you just said is, just the little simple things in doing what you say you're going to do. When we first started and when we would show up for appointments, people would thank us for being on time. For being on time.
I know.
Like I'm like, are we so crazy out in the world that people can't show up to appointments on time that we're
I
getting
know.
thanked for it? That's a differentiator. That's crazy to me.
I love it. I
Yeah.
love that. That's why I
Yeah.
love home services. It's
Yeah.
great. I have a question here from the audience. So I'm just come to it because I know we've already passed the royalty conversation. But I'm going to come back to it because Johnny here has a question. His question is, I'm curious about the fixed royalty amount. Does it have escalations, a certain percentage of or dollar amounts each year or every number of years? And I think the answer to that question is yes. A brand new franchisee at Gotcha Covered has a lower fixed fee. I think it's like 400, then it jumps to 600, then like 1,000. I don't know the exact tiers, but it takes about 2 years before you hit the final tier. And what is it 1,500 or is it 1,400? I can't
I think
remember.
it's about 1,500, right? And then it maxes out at that point.
Yeah.
Right.
So that hopefully answers your question, Johnny. And I will say that it is in the blinds industry, there are a few other concepts out there that seems to be standard in the blinds franchise concepts to have a fixed royalty system. So
Well,
it is.
and if I could just add to that, it makes this is what we really appreciate, and getting into the businesses we appreciated about it. Um, uh, as with the Northeast, the Southeast, the Midwest, the Northwest, the Southwest, every region is different. Their home decor, their architectural design, so on and so forth. Not we can use local vendors that are here in the area that are geared toward Florida customers.
Mhm.
And we don't have to go through an approval process as long as we know that they have a good quality, so we really appreciate having the flexibility. It set our business apart by sourcing local vendors, just a few here and there to make that difference for our customers to get them what they need as opposed to sticking with, maybe the large branded vendors. It
Yeah.
truly helps us to be successful.
That's a good point, Larry. Thank you for sharing that. I want to. So you mentioned earlier, you alluded to the fact that when you were coaching some of the new franchisees, you talked about guerrilla marketing. If you don't mind, maybe just we talked about backstage some of the things that you are doing, like monthly, you spend a certain amount of money on pay-per-click advertising and so forth. Could you just break down for me how you get your customers, like how you make the phone ring? You said before backstage, my job is to make the phone ring. Svet's job is to close all the deals, and she's amazing at it. So you get this team, which I love to see a team effort. You're married and you're working together in the business and making things happen. My wife said to me this morning how happy she is because we're in this fitness journey where the two of us are working out every morning together. And she is so happy just doing that with me. And I'm happier. We're spending an hour together every morning in the gym. So finding that vibe that really works for us has been awesome. But me, if you don't mind sharing for us and for the listeners, what is it you're doing for guerrilla marketing? How are you making the phone ring? How are you tracking it? Like what's working for you?
We, like I said, but as you call it backstage, we didn't have a huge budget to go out and launch a new franchise and get us up and running. And we needed to replace my income. I had left really soon after we opened up, I left my corporate role. And so we lost that income and I felt the pressure to go out and make the phone ring because it all starts with the phone ringing. If you can make mistakes, it teaches you. The more you can sell for less, it flattens the learning curve. There's a huge learning curve in any business. And we feel like this business, it's even greater just because of all the different variables.
A lot of products. There's a lot of products to get with.
And not just the products, there's a lot of ways to mount the products. And there's a lot of windows and different shapes of windows. And, so
the industry evolves, so it changes constantly. And now the new cording, there's just challenges.
Yeah. So based on the initial, when we were doing the discovery process, I'd realized that I'd already targeted some areas that I could go out and just open doors and get our name out there. And from there, it's instead of taking $2,000 a month and spending it on PPC, I would take $1,500 and spend on PPC, and $500 I would spend on little chocolates. That's where it started. Just these little bags of chocolates. Buy the little net gift bags and hand out $1.50 worth of chocolate so that I could walk in, give them my 30-second elevator speech about what we did as a company. And from day one, we never projected that we were new. We never projected that it was just a one or two person show. I always tried to project that there was some depth to the company to build some trust, because we're marketing to some high-end, homes and people that spend money. The thing about home services business is, in most any of it, and especially in the window treatment business, we'll walk into a customer will call us. We'll walk into a home, and an hour later we're done. We send them a quote. The next day they call us up and they give us a $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 deposit, and they don't hear from us for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks. Okay, because we have to wait for those products to be manufactured. You have to build some trust. You can't show up late. You can't show up like you don't have your what together and expect to get that check, because there's more to it than just being nice and telling them the product. So I always wanted to project we had an image, more depth to our company, even when it was just her and I, before we had a full-time salesperson or an office manager or installers. And so I went to anybody that I felt that would be that was doing business with a potential new homeowner, somebody that was remodeling, somebody that was putting new windows in, any ADT salespeople, realtors, new model homes, the construction foremen, builders, flooring companies. I hit anything and do any little breakfast. I mean, I found that, and I knew we needed the Google part. We have to build Google, because that is that is our residual income. You build that brand, you build those 5-star reviews. That's that residual where we're getting to now, to where when things start slowing down, all of that we've done in the past really kind of carries that momentum for us. But it was just a matter of going out and telling people about our business, I have spent my sales career going out selling for peanuts for somebody else, opened thousands of doors, and it really didn't make a difference in my life. Now I can walk into a place, make a connection with somebody, get a phone call the next day, and that may mean $8,000, $10,000, or $15,000 in net profit for our business, and it, in a one-day sell. That's huge for us. That still is exciting for us to do.
So just one thing I wanted to mention, we get off track sometimes, we get in the weeds, and Larry doesn't go out and market sometimes. He's just doing whatever needs to be done. He's putting out fires, right? So marketing is more of a proactive. We're more reactive sometimes. But a couple months ago, it was getting slower. And I'm like, Larry, you need to get out there. You need to get the phone to ring. And that next month, we did $193,000. That was our biggest month so far ever. So it just
come on, Larry, get out there, and I don't know.
It's not always that way, but we've noticed throughout our time with Got You Covered that it may not be as immediate of a payoff, but it is a payoff over time, and it's something that you just got to keep doing until you start to see the results. I'm also going to say one more thing. When we started this business, Larry said that we kind of painted a picture of ourselves. So we never said we're brand new. We say Got You Covered's been around at that time for about 20 years. We're expanding to this area, and we're representing. So it's, you want to give yourself depth. You don't want to look like a new person asking somebody for $10,000.
Yeah. That's a great tip. That is like, that's gold. If anyone's here listening to this right now and you're a new franchisee, take advantage of the fact the brand you bought into have been around for and have locations all across North America. Use that to your advantage. You paid for it. Use it. That's great advice. Thank you. Larry, you wanted to say something?
There's quite a few different things that popped them up. We haven't found a way to keep myself on the street enough to market on a regular basis, because I still do sales. I'll just go help with installs. I can cover the office. I can do about anything that needs to be done. And so I get pulled in different directions, just because one of the toughest challenges of any business, and in this business or any, is finding good help that doesn't cost you more money than they make you. And we've had some challenges there. We brought staff on and then, had to back off. So we're at a very good sweet spot, but it still puts a lot of pressure on Svet now. But the getting out and telling people about being that business owner, that proud, people love to hear an entrepreneur story. It's something to be proud of. So when I would walk into a business working for somebody else selling, at US Foods or Massey, or Cheney Brothers, if I made a sale, it might make me an extra $40 or $50 a week. With the residual type sales that I was in then. So, this is much more impactful, and I can be far more proud of it and tell a better story being the business owner out, shaking the hands.
Yeah, I want to come back to two things. I have a question here from Aaron. I'm going to get to you in a second here, Aaron, and it's a great question. But I want to just restate something you said, Larry. You said ADT, right? Alarm install salespeople, real estate agents, flooring companies, construction companies. I noticed there's a lot of focus on new home because they need blinds and window treatments. So you just went and found anyone that's going to be going into a new home, and you want to be part of that conversation, and you are networking with them, which, I mean, $1.50 box of chocolates or candies is not a lot of money, but the face-to-face time, once again, communicating the size of the business. You've been around for 20 years. We're expanding. These are all great, awesome pieces of advice. I hope that we're all listening to, and to hit your best sales month ever when Larry finally went and knocked on the doors again, right?
Well, yeah, I work for her. I mean, on a daily basis, I'm her employee. I wake up in the morning and where do you want me? Because she drives the ship at this point. I will say, and I'm not, I want to help anybody I can, but I can't. I am good at making the phone ring, but I can't do what she does. We wouldn't be where we are at without So I wake up every morning and say, "All right, boss, where do you want me?" Now, the unfortunate part is at 11 o'clock at night, I'm still laying down with my boss. You know what I'm saying? So,
well, I mean, I don't know. There's perks. You go. We won't go there. Yeah. So, Aaron has a question here, and I think this is valid because you have a special situation where you're working together as a couple and you're taking on different parts of the responsibilities, right? And Aaron asked the question, has it been difficult to find good employees? How do you keep the good ones? This is a great question. I want to hear from you on this. But I want to point out as well that for some owners who get into the business, you may be the person that does the sales. You may be really good at sales. It may be your genius, actually. You might be the person to do sales, but you're not great at execution and installation and running crews, which means you got to find somebody, if you're not married to that person, who can do that for you. And you got to find those good employees. So if you don't mind, because I know there's got to be, the most important hires you've made in your business that helps bring you to the point where you're now managing the business and versus working in it. You don't mind, how are you finding your good people? And tell me the positions you've hired, right? But how do you find those good people and how do you keep them?
Our first real hire was a full-time installer, probably about 10 months into the business. We did not have the budget for a full-time installer. We did not have enough installations for a full-time installer. When he wasn't installing for us, he was out putting door tags on people's houses, any way that we could kind of get him at almost 40 hours a week, because we knew we needed that there in order to build. He taught us so much about the industry. So I think a good installer, because like you said, You take what you're good at, hire what you're not so good at. Neither one of us is a great installer. So we did that first. He helped us to grow our business. And then we had an office manager. She was our next hire. And
Svet, can we go back though? How did you find that great installer? Like, you've kept this person. How did you find them?
yeah, and he was with us for about 5 years. He got sick, but to be honest with you, we found him through word of mouth. I had a friend who was in the window treatment industry in the past, and she told me about an installer who was currently looking for a position. We met him and we hired him. So when we started getting bigger, we needed another installer. So the way we got our next installer is just through Indeed. We put an ad out,
Okay.
and we didn't put an ad out for a window treatment installer. We put an ad out for just somebody who's handy, somebody who knows how to screw something, how to use those tools. And then our installer, full-time installer, trained that person. Now that person is our lead installer, and he's been with us, I guess, about 5 or 6 years.
Wow.
And we have another installer who we just hired. He's been with us, I guess, about 7 or 8 months now. And
Did you find him through Indeed as well, or how did you find him?
We did.
We found him through Indeed.
Okay.
And then we have an office manager who we also found through Indeed. She's been with us, I guess, 4 years now. And
Wow.
our salesperson has been with us for 5 years. But know that in between, we've hired a couple of installers that we've had to let go, unfortunately. We've hired a couple of salespeople that we've had to let go, unfortunately. So it's about, it's about really finding the right position. Like everywhere, good help is hard to find. As far as keeping them, we pay them well, we treat them well. I don't believe in micromanaging. I believe in everybody taking ownership of their position. And so when they say to me, what do you want me to do? I say, well, what do you think should be done? And so I kind of get them to own their positions that way. And we treat them good. We are always communicating that with them. We just had a meeting with them that we provided lunch. We do that about once a month. We all kind of talk, get our grievances out, communicate, and everybody leaves in a better place. So it's
amazing how much more enjoyable a business is once you have the right people. It is all about people, right? Whether it's a good installer or a good salesperson. You had an office manager, salesperson, a couple of installers. You found them through Indeed or your network,
yes.
which I always say this, your network is your net worth.
Yes.
If you have a solid network, which you've been building, it just creates so much more value in your business. So remember that, keeping them, pay them well, take care of them, small things that have to be done. I do know that depending on the industry you're in, we've also had great success with finding great installers through our suppliers. So if the supplier's providing us, the product we're installing, they often know another person who can install or take on some projects for us as a contractor.
And we did get some installers that way initially through our vendors, and they were contract installers. Yeah. And it was great. It got us through that time period. But when it's your own W-2 employee, it's like, here's what we're going to do. Here's how you're going to treat the situation. It's not like, I'm going to pay you an X amount of money and I'm hoping you're going to do well, which is what we've experienced with contract help.
Yeah,
where it set us apart, just Scott, real quick, just not take up much time here. Being able to dictate the time. If we have a customer that's spending $5 or $50,000 with us, and they say, "Hey, I'm moving in. I need this on this date," and we would call 2 or 3 of our contract installers, and they're like, "Hey, I'm booked. I can't do it till the following week at this time." It was kind of embarrassing to go back to our customer or client that has spent so much money with us and say, "I'm sorry, we can't accommodate you. We've got, and this is 2 or 3 weeks out. If we need to get it done, we can make changes and satisfy that customer to give them that custom high-end experience to get it done."
Gives us more control.
Yeah. Yep. Well, that's the promise of Gotcha Covered, right? You guys, we are a high-end, upper class window treatment company. So it's full service, right? And so you mentioned it before. So there's upside to that. You get paid a little more. Your average job size is higher. The challenge is sometimes the customer's more discerning, more demanding. Little things matter, right? So that's an important reminder. I have another question here from Calf. He's asked the question, how do you collaborate with other franchise brands in your area? And we talked about this backstage. Share with us, like, How has that gone so far for you?
Well, we talked about it. It really hasn't. And I actually had, just to repeat what I said, one of the ideas, the training call that I was on with some of the other franchises an hour at 10 to 11 this morning. One of the newer franchises asked me, he said, how are you marketing with any of the 5-star brands? And I said, well, I haven't been because I don't know who's in our area. Svet and I went to do a little fix for one of our very discerning customers a couple of days ago, and we were in the car together, which is rare these days. And we drove by one of the 5-star paint trucks in the neighborhood. I'm like, hey, there's a 5-star paint truck. And so I had mentioned maybe during the home services conference that maybe we could have a breakout to where, some regional, Florida people or, at least regions, so we can kind of see if there's somebody in our area that we can partner up with. We're all in the same boat. We're all, rowing the same weight, no matter what business you're in this or what brand. So we all face the same challenges, making the phone ring, making the customer happy, pulling the job through, labor, so on and so forth. So it would be great if we had more exposure. I've met some great people throughout I met Joe, I think with Bath Solutions. Yep.
In Atlanta. Yeah.
Yep. And then another gentleman at the getaway from up in he's with Bio One. Have a great time with them, So
yeah.
That would be a great thing to add for the conference, so we could have that.
Yeah, Larry, it's a great reminder, and I'm committing, and I know our team's committing to make sure that we do a better job at this next HSS. To make sure that franchisees in the same area can connect. It's my vision at 5-star franchising to have enough. We're acquiring more companies. We just acquired My Yard that happened a month and a half ago. We hope to have another acquisition. That's okay. We hope to have another acquisition here in a few months in another service line. Over the next few years, we will have multiple brands in multiple service lines that can work together more effectively. I will say today where we're at, we are not providing enough value to franchisees in this area. It's my vision. That'll be a very different story in 5 years, and we'll get there. But at this next convention, I'm committing, and our team's committing to make sure that we're more effective at connecting owners in the same markets to help refer business to each other. So it's a great reminder. Thank you for asking the question, Kath. I've got 2 more questions here I want to come back to from the audience. Maria asks, in terms of timing, what do you use as indicators to hire? And do you use actual revenue or forecasted revenue? So how do you know when is your next hire to, are you looking at, when do you know to hire a next person? What's
when
that?
When things get uncomfortable. So I'm being serious. So when you are working too much and doing too much and you can't take care of everything, you can see the business coming in. When you see that starting to happen, to me, that's always been the time that we hire. I don't want to, because it's hard. You have to train the person. You have to do all the other stuff. If I'm so far in the weeds, I can't do any of that stuff. I can't see outside of what is in front of me. So I think that's the best time, when you start to feel the busyness.
Or if you start feeling the customer experience to wane, we know we need to, bring other people on. The office manager really set us up with it, and we have our own. We don't have a showroom, but we have a very nice industrial office in an industrial complex.
Mm-hmm.
The business, like I said, still runs when we leave. The sales calls are made, installations are made, deliveries are made. We don't have to be there. We've got to the point where we're not at all very many of the installations these days. But I've never had a good feel for that. Svet has a much better gut intuition on when we should take that next step to bring somebody else on. But it has, and I've seen from watching her, it's really when the customer starts to feel the stress. We know if we want the business to succeed, we have to take it to the next level and commit to it.
So I'm going to dig into this just for a little with you guys, because I think there's something we could pull out. But I'll make a note that in general, as a business practice, bottlenecks are the things you always focus on, right? So if you've got a salesperson that's running 50, 60-hour days, and you're having more leads come in than they can handle, you've got to hire another salesperson, right? And similarly, if you're installing X amount of revenue and you're finding that your installers can't get to the jobs on time and you've got work backing up, and every concept's different in terms of what that looks like, then you got to be hiring another installer. But in saying that, just for our audience, for you right now, I think you mentioned you have one salesperson, right? And yourself, right, Svet? Do you do sales as well?
And Larry, yeah. So I do sales, Larry does sales, and Lindsay does sales.
We had a fourth, but she didn't work out. We had another salesperson, but she didn't work out. She left us a few months ago, so we just
for $1.5 million business, you've got a full-time salesperson. What do you think that salesperson can produce a year in total sales before she's capped out? Or he? I'm not sure if it's he or she.
It's a she.
Okay.
So I think she would cap out at probably $50,000 a month.
Yeah. Okay. So $600,000 a year. You're doing 1.5 a year, and so you guys are kind of covering for the rest, right?
Yes. And handling
and similarly, what's that, Larry?
I said, and handling all the other aspects of the business as well. Right?
Sure. Yep. And then when you look at installation, you have 2 installers. Is that right, or 3?
2.
2 installers. So each installer is capable of doing roughly $750,000 of business.
Yes.
If you wanted to go to 2 million, would you need another installer?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So you kind of
there's times right now, like we have an installer that used to work for us that gives us some availability. So when we have these really big jobs, he comes in and helps us. And we do have a couple of contract installers that we use when needed. So we've got some resources, but yes, if it gets any busier than it is right now, we will be hiring another installer.
Yeah. So and maybe just to help unpack because the question really is probably cash flow related. Like, when do you go ahead and hire another $5,000 or $6,000 or $7,000 salary? But for the salespeople, are they 100% commission or are they salaried?
Salary they're hourly and commission.
And so, just what do you pay your people, and how much is commission versus hourly wage?
So, our salesperson makes $17 an hour, and she makes 15% of the commission. She makes 15% of the profit. And of
the gross profit.
The net profit.
The net profit.
After installation, after everything, mistakes come out. We just figured her. She's making about $43 an hour on average.
Okay. Yeah. So more than half of her comp is coming from commissions.
Yeah.
So it's something to bear in mind that she makes the money as your business scales, she's making money, and so your costs kind of go with the revenue. And then an installation, are you paying your installers a salary, or do you pay them per job?
We pay them hourly as well.
Okay.
They turn in time tickets for us because sometimes they're not working 40 hours. They work whatever, or sometimes they work overtime. So between $28 and $30 an hour.
Okay. And so, once again, if they're working when you make money, they're installing product you've sold. So you wouldn't be shy around hiring an installer because you only need the installer to install revenue that you've sold, right? So that's another reminder. When did you actually hire your office manager? Like, how big was your business, and what made that decision happen for you?
So we hired the office manager probably, I think it was a little over a year into opening our own business. And to be honest with you, we did it when we transitioned from getting deliveries to a storage facility to getting deliveries to an office. So when we got deliveries to an office, Larry and I are very rarely in our office. We're always in other homes or people's homes. So she is there to accept deliveries, check them in. So when we made that transition, we needed a body that was going to be there and answering phones and all that. So that's kind of when we made that transition.
And she's taking over doing all the scheduling, reaching out to customers. Hey, the installers are going to be late. Can you be home on the 10th for this install? She handles vendors of parts coming in.
Social media.
Yes, some social media posts. So she fills a big void. Other than Plus, when we leave business, there's still somebody there live to answer the call that's got some personal information about their.
And that's got to free up a lot of your own time too, right? Like that must be nice. All that stuff you were doing before, and so that's got to be freeing up you as owners to have a little more flexibility, which is what we're all looking for. You mentioned that as one of the reasons why you bought the business. You want flexibility, so you don't want your business to be a ball and chain. You want it to be enjoyable.
And I've always been taught that think about what you're doing. Is it a high payoff activity? If it's not a high payoff activity, stop.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean? Don't just spin your wheels and don't just run in circles all day. Work purposely and work smarter, not harder.
And let's just break it down. If Svet and I are just as good as our salesperson making $43 an hour, if we're out making $43 an hour, as opposed to paying our office manager 22, $23 an hour, we're still coming out ahead, and we have the flexibility.
Yeah,
By
I love that.
us being out selling. So we're better served to be doing other things than sitting there waiting for UPS to come, scheduling appointments.
Couldn't agree more.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah, you want to make sure you're in it. You're always doing things that add value, and everyone has unique value they can bring to a business, as we're seeing here in this conversation. So remember that. In fact, I'm in the middle of reading a book called The Six Geniuses by Patrick Lencioni, and he talks about how every one of us has a genius in us that we can use in our business. So find out what that is and use it to the impact of the company. I got another question here from Simon, I believe. Is, do you have to train your sales person? And if so, how long before they become effective? That is a great question.
So each person has a different learning curve, but I'd say 3 months before I would let them enter somebody's house by themselves.
We have some difficult jobs here in our area. We rarely do just all roller shades or all full wood blinds. It's going to be 3 or 4 different treatments as a rule with especially our larger, we target those larger cells. So you get draperies. Draperies are probably our number 2. Plantation shutters are our number $1. Draperies are, I'm sure, our number 2, which are very difficult, very challenging to learn. If you get into Romans, it's just a
little just hard mistake. They're hard to sell because they're just hard to explain. Like what makes it challenging?
No, they're just difficult to understand. There's so many variables in a drape. Not to mention, right now it is our most expensive product. To cover one sliding glass door, it's $4,000 to $5,000, and people get sticker shock constantly. So you have to sell the value of it. But drapes are challenging, and anybody who's tried to sell them in the configuration of the drapes, everything about drapes is just a little bit difficult.
And if you don't explain everything to the customer and then you go and put it up, and we have $3,000 or $4,000 in a $5,000 or $6,000 project, and the customer says that's not what you told me it's going to be, pull them down and take them back home with you. We're out $3,000 or $4,000. So it's imperative to have that salesperson trained, because they can sit down and cost you, when they do the order, and they don't sell it and explain it properly and do the order, it can cost us. Our salesperson right now, it's taken us a long time, but there's times she'll put in $10,000, $12,000, $15,000 our cost order, and if she were to mess it all up, that's all the money that we'd have to take and throw away. We'd get no refunds on it. So there's some pressure to be added there.
Yeah. So how long does it take then how was it 6 months? Is it a year? Like when do you actually feel like, no, they're ready?
Oh, so I don't even know if I'm ready 7 years later. So I honestly, before somebody can go into a house and just sell faux wood blinds, they'd have to hang with me for 3 months of training.
Okay.
And then afterwards, I'm still probably going to a lot of appointments with them. To get completely independent, I'd say a year. And that's just them knowing what they don't know. You know what I mean? It's just they know enough to understand what they don't know, because there's so many variables, and this industry is changing constantly. Just when you think you can't do something, you can do something, or you thought you could, but now you can't. And so it's just hard to keep up with.
Our margins allow us to make from mistakes, small mistakes here and there with 2 or 3 shades, and still be profitable. But it doesn't set a very good community spotlight on us when we're making mistakes. And so we don't want to put people out there for failure. And this business has become our baby. We're as protective of it as about as maybe one of our children. And so we don't want the brand tarnished by putting too much on somebody. So maybe we're a little protective of sending people out there, too early, or when maybe they're all ready sooner, but it's just at a cautionary detail.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you for sharing that. It's a complicated business. I got a couple more questions here for you. Veronica asked, do you pay your installers hourly? I think we already answered that, right? Are there any owners in Gotcha Cover that pay by the job? Do you know?
Sure. There's quite a few that have contract They have
Okay.
set fees for, a roller shade, draperies by the foot, high windows,
Okay.
motorization gets a fee. But yes, there's quite a few that do, and then they don't have to worry about the workers' compensation insurance
Yeah.
and W-2 employee, W-2 taxes, and we have them all on payroll and everything, so we have to absorb those
Yeah.
costs as well.
I can see that it adds a lot of flexibility in the beginning, especially. And I'm sure, are there any large operators like yourselves that still do contractors, or does everyone, when they get really big, finally just kind of have an employee or two?
I think, yeah, for the most part, what we've seen is when you get big enough, yeah, they'll have their own employees.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Okay.
many
Yeah.
so many callbacks that we get, service calls, and it's hard to get contract employee to get a fair price to get somebody to put one screw back in the wall, and they have to drive 20 minutes, and who knows where they live, 20 minutes from the office, but they're driving from 40 minutes away.
Yeah.
So once you reach a certain level, the more business you put in, the more treatments you hang, the more service work and warranty work you're going to have. And, the vendors will replace most of the stuff, but they don't pay you to replace the labor of it. So having your own labor for us is really at this volume is the only way to go.
And you mentioned earlier that there's enough margin in your business, and backstage you brought up like how much money do you spend on an average job as a percent on your labor, materials, and sales, like getting the job sold, installed, and the product purchased? Was it like 52% or something?
I'd say that's about right.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's probably if you add the labor, our margin as of last year on that number for 2023 was, I think, 52.2 or 3%.
Yeah.
With installation added into that. It's so hard to calculate installation for us because some jobs are an hour, some are, all day or 2 days. But we can do $15,000 in shutters in one day with two installers.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I've got a couple more questions, but we're coming to the close of this this conversation, which has been really enjoyable. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm gonna get to one of these questions really quick. There's 3 other on here. I can't get to them all, and I apologize for not being able to get to them all in this hour. I want to just encourage you all, attend HSS. You'll have a chance to meet Larry and Svet in person. And I know that they'll want to take the opportunity to talk to you and about what they're doing in their business and how they're making it as successful as it is. So let me get to one of these last questions. Aaron, he says, how do you compare to competition in price, and how do you communicate your value to customers?
I think we communicate our value through the consultation. So obviously showing up on time, having the product that the customer wants, solving the problems that they may have in ordering the product.
Yeah. Re-ask that question again,
I'm
Scott.
sorry, what was it? What was the last part of it?
Yeah, how do you communicate value? We're more expensive, right?
So we've had customers say to us, "You are about $700 to $800 more than another quote that I got." And every situation is different. So we say, well, we can't, compare apples to oranges. We don't know what the other product is that you're selling. Look at our Google reviews. Obviously we've done everything that we say we're going to do. The products that we're selling you have this kind of warranty, and so we just kind of sell it that way. And even though we are maybe sometimes more, people will still go with us. And we as consumers will pay more for things that we feel comfortable with.
When we first started,
confident.
When we first started,
Scott,
right? Price was much more of an issue when we were new.
Yeah.
We rarely have anybody now.
I mean, they'll challenge us, but they'll still go forward.
Yeah, it's far fewer ask us for discounts and things now than it was at the beginning. So it just takes time. If you stick with it and build that business and show that you show up on time, you can deliver. You're not going anywhere. You're a face in the community. The margins come.
Yeah, I'll just share this as we're closing. I did a lot of research on customers all across our brands to understand how much more people are willing to pay from a brand they trust, from a brand versus a chuck in the truck, I'll call them. And it's about 15 to 20%. They'll pay more to have warranty, certainty, good reviews, great product, a uniformed person, a vehicle wrapped vehicle showing up, like all these little things instill confidence. And people are emotional beings. And most of us, unless you're very analytical, most of us will go to the feeling we have in that moment. So remember that. And you have to believe in the product, believe in the price, and have that confidence. When you have those things, it does work. And so I want to stress that. And you're showing that. And in addition to that, when your leads are coming from referrals, they always are willing to pay more money, and you have a higher close rate than if it just came from, a pay-per-click ad. So
100%.
another reminder to balance off all your marketing with the guerrilla marketing that Larry talks about. Guys, thank you so much. And Paulo, I couldn't agree more. You need some of that training from this couple. I agree. They are amazing. They've done a great job in their business. Eric, I'm sorry I couldn't get to your question. Ask it in person at HSS. Thank you, everyone, for joining us and making this what it is. And I look forward to seeing you guys in person. Okay. Thanks.
Thanks,
for
Scott.
joining us.
Yeah, enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.